We have a major update. Family of black airmen killed by cop is now planning to sue. I'm going to take you to a reminder of what happened and then bring you the update. Here it is.
Are they fighting or something?
He's saying that it happens frequently.
Okay.
But this time it sounded like it was getting out of hand.
Sheriff's office, open the door! Sheriff's office, open the door! Step out. Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
It's over there.
Drop the gun!
I don't have it.
312, shots fired. Suspect down. Do not move!
He should have never been a suspect. Put it up for a mask. You're talking about a young man who followed the rules, was a responsible and dutiful son and older brother. This is in the state of Florida. He never pointed a gun. And the only reason he had a gun in his hand was because at the time he was on a video chat with someone and heard a person aggressively knocking on the door. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump says he will file a lawsuit against a former Florida sheriff's deputy and others for the May 2024 shooting death of the 23-year-old U.S. senior airman Roger Fortson. We covered this on day one. Florida authorities released body cam footage showing the tragic moment when a white sheriff's deputy fatally shot a black U.S. senior airman during a disturbance call at a Fort Walton Beach apartment complex, which attorney Ben Crump continues to claim was carried out at the wrong unit. Atlanta Black Star obtained official police video of the shooting that killed the 23-year-old Air Force senior airman, Roger Fortson, after the deputy was met in the parking lot by a witness who apparently called the police and led the officer to apartment 1401, which is shown as the number outside of Fortson's unit. This is a reminder. Inside, Fortson was chatting with his girlfriend on FaceTime before he was shot almost as soon as he opened his front door. Moments before the gunfire, the Okaloosa County Sheriff deputy was told by a woman in the parking lot that it, quote, sounded like something was getting out of hand, end quote, inside of 1401. She then told the officer that 2 weeks earlier, she or a neighbor was passing by the same unit when she heard someone yelling, "Shut the blank up," end quote, and other threatening expletives, as well as the sound of someone being slapped. However, she admitted to the officer that she was not exactly sure where the shouting was coming from at the time. Can I just say this for evidentiary reasons? I don't know what kind of slap can be heard inside of an apartment, inside of a room, beyond the mainframe door, outside of that unit by somebody walking by an apartment complex. But according to this individual, that's exactly what happened. At that point, the officer should have realized this person may have a tendency to exaggerate. It continues. On the day in question, however, she said she had no doubts that the disturbance was coming from inside of Fortson's apartment. At that point, she tells the deputy that the unit is located on the 4th floor down the hall from the elevator. Once upstairs, the deputy is shown approaching Fortson's door and listening quietly for a few seconds before banging on the door. At this time, he did not announce himself as a cop, but instead positioned himself to the side of the door where he could not be seen through the peephole. Now, after this happened, we did receive more information as to context. see, this young man actually checked to see who was at the door. When he could not see the individual, or it was clear that the individual was attempting to hide themselves, that is when he went back to grab his issued piece. He holds it in the position he is trained to hold it in, which is not aggressively, because he has not identified a threat. It's simply for protection if a threat comes. This young 23-year-old followed his training, had his weapon next to his body, pointed toward the ground. The officer has similar training, but the cop did not follow his. The cop decided to abandon his training, not identify a threat, and shoot someone who was innocent. Put him up, full mass. Former Okaloosa County Sheriff Deputy Eddie Duran shot and killed Mr. Fortson, who was Black. He did this at the door of this Black man's apartment. Mr. Duran has pleaded not guilty to manslaughter. That criminal case is still pending. Okaloosa Sheriff Eric Aiden fired Duran after Fortson's death. After an internal investigation concluded Duran's life was actually not in danger when he opened fire. Not in danger when he opened fire. Crump plans a news conference with Fortson and family members, Fort WALTON Beach, Florida, to discuss the lawsuit. Crump says his lawsuit will contend that Deputy Duran used, quote, excessive and unconstitutional deadly force in this shooting. It will also outline what it calls failures of training and supervision at the sheriff's office, and claim the apartment complex where Fortson was shot provided, quote, misleading, unverified information that led to the violent response. The case is in the pretrial hearing phase. You got hearings for motions, et cetera. And the deputy is out on bond currently. Hell of a story. Sharon, I remember when this first happened, we covered it on radio and obviously on Indisputable. The mother was so saddened by this because her son was looking after his younger sibling, and he was one of these very responsible young men. He avoids being killed in war to be killed at home by a cop who was supposed to protect him.
You're absolutely right. I feel for this mother. I never want to be in her position, but we have to support her where she ended up because of this Duran. If he's out on bond, Doc, a bolo needs to be issued. The community's not safe. That's how inept he is. He executed this man. And let's take care of the apartment complex and the Bonita Betrell wannabe witness who claimed to hear slaps and everything else, responsible for the execution. And if it was true, there was a domestic violence situation going on instead of an honorable airman, a 23-year-old on FaceTime with his girlfriend. You ever hear my daughter on the phone, how loud she is? Hell, I clap when I'm recording something just to make sure that the audio is set. Is Bonita Betrell gonna hear that too? You know, this is absolutely disgusting. It is that easy. You know, I started to say, when you're a Black man, you have no room for error. There was no error.
That's right.
If you heard domestic violence, perhaps the person coming to the door needed help.
Right.
You didn't even pretend to look at what was going on in there. Absolute filth. And this is what we're dealing with, Florida. Let's hear it for Attorney Crump.
Yep, there you go. And you're right. He could have been a victim answering the door, and he would have been killed as a victim. He's killed as an innocent individual. So now we'll see what happens in the update of the trial. Guaranteed to bring it to you.